Hey, welcome back to Sweet Hot Rods and Honey. I'm Daryl, and today we're going to do a little bit of body work. We're going to do some sanding on fenders and getting the hood put on the 55 Chevy and getting things lined up as far as the hood and fenders. So we'll see how that goes. I'm not loving body work, so I got one of my goodies here, Smithwick's Red Ale, and it kind of takes the pain away just a little bit. So, all right, let's get started. Okay, we're gonna get the hood on. Why don't you go over there, okay? Like that. And we're gonna walk it over here. It's not real heavy, it's just we don't want to bang it. Yes, go easy. Now we have one. Let's see. Eyeball is right about there. Start coming down. All right, now can you? All right, I want you to come over here. You can let go. You can hold on to this. Okay. While we get the. You're gonna have to tip it up a little bit. Let's see if I can find. All right, just get it started. Tip up just a little bit right there. Oh
God. It's just killing my hands.
You all right?
Yeah.
My wife is helping me build this car. She's been a great help. Yeah, get that hole. Almost there. So we got the hood on, a course fit. It looks like this gap on the back edge is relatively consistent. But the problem that I see is on the passenger side, the inner wheel well is kind of flush with the hood. On the driver's side, there's a much larger gap. So I think things have to get shifted as far as the core support. I'm gonna have to loosen the core support and loosen the fender well. These two bolts, screws on both sides, and hopefully slide everything, core support and these fenders, inner fenders, towards the passenger side. But everything else looks okay. No damage going on, which I'm thankful for. Yeah, we did get a little catch back here on the driver's side on the on this little post support for the hood, but and a little chip. So I'll have to straighten that out. But in general, I think the fit looks pretty decent. And I'll try to get these fenders dry fit, but they've got to be sanded and painted. These are fiberglass, and the inner fenders are painted with acrylic, black acrylic. The one issue I don't know if I'm going to have or not, but so at the bottom of the fender is this mount support. That should be easy to shim or adjust. This middle support, the passenger side was bashed in at one time in its life, and so this is a little bit bent, but on these fiberglass fenders, I don't have a mounting point, but I should be able to reach in there. I might have to take off these this panel, and so I can get my hand up underneath once the fender is in place. Get my hand up in there to shim this, so that the gap, or the to make sure that the front fenders are flush with the doors. And then of course this adjustment up here, where the top of the fender attaches to the front cowling and firewall. That's pretty easy to adjust, and it can go, in or out. So that's not a problem. I'll have to get this antenna installed after the fender's installed. But yeah, so that's the. So I loosened up the core support bolts on the bottom of the frame in the front, and these two guys, the whole core support has to go towards the passenger side, and I'm maxed out as far as the mounting holes and those bolts. It got a little bit better. I gained, I don't know, a quarter of an inch maybe, but there's still a much bigger gap here. So I may have to either knock some in, but really right here's the top of the core support bracket, and here's the other one, which is, it's I needed to go another quarter inch. So I can bend the sheet metal out and get an adjustment down here. bottom mount of the wheel well on either side, but it's really the top of the core support is really what matters. So kind of in a predicament. I don't know if I can, if the core support is level, if I cock up the driver's side a little bit to try to close that gap and open up this gap on the passenger side, as well as maybe cheat back here with the gap from the cowling to the top of the hood, or the back edge of the hood. I can probably gain a little bit there, but not a whole lot. So this is why I'm enjoying my Smiths. And this is left over from St. Patrick's Day. It's March 28th now, and so let me have some of this. It's good stuff. All right, can't do too much of that. So let me try to gain a little bit, one way or the other. I don't know. Let me see what happens. Well, I think I got things kind of lined up pretty well. The gaps at each of the fenders, before I get the fenders on, they match pretty well. What I ended up doing was a combination of, pushing the core support over towards the passenger side as far as I could. Yeah, so I got the gaps close, but then I decided I could try to shim. I don't know if you can see that. I put a shim up so I could tilt the core over towards the passenger side. So it's not ideal, but it's, I think, the best we can get right now. So I'm gonna work on these fenders and get them sanded. And then I'll start to do a rough fit of them. There's a lot of pitting. There's kind of a lot of small stuff that's got to be filled in. Pitting there, mainly on the mount side of the, along where this mounts alongside the edge of the hood. And there's a lot of roughness here. So there's quite a bit of work to do on these fenders. Luckily, there's not any welding that has to be done. But fiberglass, a little bit of fiberglass work maybe. Probably the majority is filling these pinholes and rough edges with some body fill. And then we'll see how this mount goes for the antenna on the passenger side. And also we'll see how these, not the top mounts and not the bottom, the middle of the panel mating up to the door. I'll see how bad that looks. Hopefully it won't be too bad. So I had added extra fiberglass to these fenders to give them a little bit more stiffness. I used to have sailboats and did some fiberglass work, so I put this panel, which should stiffen up, from flexing or warping. they're kind of straight. So I did that on both. But again, in the past, my forte has not been body work. It's just so time consuming and tedious that I kind of in a hurry to get things done, but I do want them to be nice in the end. So, you know, if I learned to take my time, I would be better off. So, okay, let me get going on these fenders and I'll get back. Another thing I forgot to mention was I had to play a little bit with the gap, moving the hood actually on the driver's side forward. The gaps are pretty even, but what was happening is I've got a problem here catching the cowling vent, and so I got to do some touch up, and I've got to straighten that out right here. It got bent back, but it's not catching anymore. What I did was I used a pair of an adjustable crescent wrench, and I grabbing this lip, pulling it up to pull it away from the cowling. And I also had to put some washers on these screws because the C channel of the cowling mount was too wide, so a couple of the screws were not catching and pulling it down. So I had to add some washers to pull it down out of the way so it would help clear the edge of the hood. So it's just more stuff. Now I have to go back and touch up those chips here in a few places along here, but not bad. I love these new stainless steel wiper arms and wiper blades. All right, let me get going on this stuff. I think after we sand and before I do body fill, I'll do a rough fit of the fenders on the car. Well, after about an hour and a half of sanding, I've got one panel sanded. It was primed. I use urethane primer. But I still have to use glazing compound and a little bit of body fill in the pinholes. Probably not going to do much more tonight. So I'll probably do some more sanding tomorrow. Maybe I'll do the body fill on this one panel so it dries overnight and I can sand it tomorrow. But this is I just hate sanding. You know, doing the rest of body work is fine, but sanding is just a bore. So that's why some of my body work jobs don't turn out well, because the prep is the most important in my mind. And so, you know, I'll try my best before I get bored. I should just set it aside when I do get bored and then come back to it later and finish it up and do it the right way. So, all right, tomorrow is going to be more sanding and body fill. Well, we're making a little bit more progress on the side panels of the upholstery. Here I've got the masonite, and this is laid out for the driver's side. And these are the panels that are going to go there. But I can show you basically what it's going to look like for the rear panel on the driver's side. So we're going to have the green upholstery and alternating green with ivory vinyl and green and ivory vinyl on the floor. So that's going to be the combo. And on the front door panels, same thing, matching, but on, I think it's this ribbing, there's going to be stainless trim that'll be a divider, and I haven't polished that yet. I got the pieces here. So these two for the front panel, driver and the passenger, and then on the rear, there's a single, and then these are for the seat bolsters. I just haven't got those finished yet. But here's how I laid out the panel. Got all the markings for the window opener, armrest holes, and the way I made up these vinyl and cloth panels is this is indoor-outdoor carpeting, and it's just a firm cushion. So that's what will be. I use those for the back, for the rear seats. But on the drivers, I had some of these scrap pieces. Here's indoor-outdoor carpeting. So that's going to be on the bottom panel. This white is a closed cell foam, and it's used for marine use. Actually, when I was making canvas and building sails for sailboats, I had used these for cushions and for different things on the sail. So that's not going to absorb any water. But so I just wanted to show you these things. That's what we're going to put in the 55, and so I'll show you more of that when time comes. Well, it's been a couple days, and I got a lot of sanding done on the front fenders and filled in pinholes, got the rough edges along the edge of the fender to the front hood. I happened to see on Facebook Marketplace one passenger side fender, and considering it, but if I can get the price down a little bit, I might just buy it. But in the meantime, I'm gonna still continue working on these fenders, and they're turning out okay. I did a rough fit on the passenger side. It's not ideal. It's close. So let me show you what I ended up with, and we'll see. If I don't get steel fenders, that's what we're going to live with. So let me put this fender on, and I'll show you what we have. It's going to need a little bit of shimming, but not much. The nice thing about fiberglass is they're light, but still rather have steel. All right, so let me bring in here. I don't have any mounting bolts on, so I'll put those on in a second. It's not a terrible fit, but it's not perfect. The gap is not really uniform. And this is gonna go, this bottom's gotta be pushed in and fastened. There's one bolt that goes through the inside to mount it. This is a little bit, well, quite a bit, not even, but right here is the midpoint where there's a mounting hole on the front of the firewall, and so that gap is going to have to be, I have to shim it out. I'll get everything fastened and lined up, and then we'll do the final shim in here to get the two flush. But the thing that bothers me most is that this gap is not going to be real uniform. It's not exactly where it's going to end up, but it's just shows that it's going to be, slightly off. But everything else, I mean, as far as these fiberglass fenders, they're okay. It's just they don't have the perfect fit at that point, mating up to the door. Everything else is fine, and the typical place where rust is right underneath the eyebrow of the headlight, and so that's one advantage of having fiberglass. But this car's never going to see the rain when I'm finished, so rust is not going to be an issue anywhere. So it's not exactly right, but, and I don't know where this hood is going to end up, height-wise, but I've got to bring, this is dropped down some, so I'm going to have to shim up to get these two surfaces to mate. They're kind of close, but not exact. And I'll get this gap right. Since it's probably the closest thing that, or the first thing that somebody's going to critique is this gap at the hood. So anyway, that's where I'm at. I'm going to do some more sanding. I had to go back and put some more body filler in. Still a few little pinholes, but I'll finish sanding these. And I'll have to wait for a day that it's 60 degrees or 65 degrees plus, because this urethane paint needs temperature, closer to 70. I have a mid-temperature reducer that I've used and activator, and that's what I used on the rest of the car, or at least this turquoise. So let me get the driver's side door, finish sanding some of these rough areas of the body filler so I don't scratch the paint, because this stuff is just hard. And let's see how that goes. One thing I wanted to point out when I was putting on the passenger side fender, there's two bolts that go through the fender and mount onto the to the core support and the inner wheel well. These two holes are, I was fighting trying to get the alignment because they weren't lined up correctly when I first tried. So I just want to make sure you guys know that line these up first before you try to put the fenders on. So let me see if I can get this fender over here without banging anything. And we'll see how it fits. At least the first time. If I can just get it slipped on and see what these mounting holes are. Well, this fender looks like it's going to fit better than the passenger side. Let me get in here. So the gap, just at first glance, there's no mounting bolts. It's just set loosely in place. It looks like when I bring this fender back towards the door, this gap is going to be more uniform, which is good. These holes, I've got to drill out these holes. They got filled in with body filler, you know, first glance, it doesn't look bad. I may have to trim just a little bit of this front edge of the metal. I don't know well, this is part of the inner wheel well. It may be holding back the fender from going back towards the door the way it's got to, it's got to go in that direction. Actually, I can feel that I've got to put a little slot here. That's what's holding it back. And as far as shape goes, when this guy gets mounted, I think it's pretty darn close to being flush with the door. So this looks like it fits better, much better than the passenger fender. I'll have to egg out this mounting hole, I think, since I can't see where the bolt's got to go. Well, maybe not. Well, I might have to egg it out just a little bit. But anyway, this fender looks much better than the passenger side. So, at least as far as where the door mates up to it and the length down at the bottom where that's going to, protrude a little bit lower. So I may consider picking up that one passenger fender that's for sale. The guy's local, actually. He's in Baltimore, but he lives just north of me, a few miles. And I don't know, about 20 miles outside of Baltimore. So it's close. It's kind of convenient. So, yeah, that's it for, the first rough fit of the fenders. I've got to do sanding on all of them to get them down to, like a 400 grit finish, and then prime them again. And then again, if we get a warm day, I think it's supposed to be warm next week, I may have a chance to paint them, but I don't know, we'll see what the weather's like. Humidity is still low enough that shouldn't be a problem. So I would like to get this front end is still sitting high. I've got a big gap here. I'd like to have it down another, 3 inches. I took the suspension. I kept the stock springs, but I took one ring off of it, so it was probably about an inch that it dropped down, and maybe I will drop it down one more ring worth of distance. So we'll see. I'll have to drive it first to see how things settle down. And I put in a temporary jury-rigged seat, if you like that. But it'll be good enough to take down the road. I've got it bolted down, screwed down onto these 4x4s, then I've got the 4x4 tied into the seat mount, so it's not going to tip back. It's not going to go anywhere. It may just be a little sideways unstable, but it's still safe. I didn't want to drive it and be flipping back and losing complete control of gas pedal and the brake pedal. But anyway, that's where we're at. More body work, more sanding. Sanding wasn't as big of a deal as I anticipated, and I used a vibrating sander to do the final, after I put the body filler on and filled in pinholes and things like that. I used that sander, which does a good job on very hard body filler. So anyway, I think that's it for this video. Can't say a whole lot more about, the adjustments to be made on the front fenders. There's going to be shimming, there's going to be a little bit of trimming. One thing I did realize, I think I might be able to, once this is in place, that's just a huge gap. But where I saw that there was an inconsistent gap was from like the middle third of the door. And so what I believe will work is if I put in underneath the wheel well, attaching to the front edge of the fender about right here, I can put a rod that would attach to the other side of the wheel well and kind of pull this inboard, which would open up this gap to be closer to the rest of the gap of the door. And so I think I might try that, unless I buy that other steel fender. So I'll keep you posted. Well, all this discussion about these fiberglass fenders is kind of a moot point now, because I got a steel fender. Talked to a guy on Facebook Marketplace. He's not too far from my house, you know, local. And so I ended up buying this steel fender that he has for the passenger side. It looks like it's in okay shape. The metal is fine. There's some pitting, so I'm gonna be doing more body work. I got plenty of body filler. The top side looks fine. Yeah, there was a patch. It looks like the bottom of the fender was replaced, and it looks like it's an okay job, but it, you know, it's all bare metal. The inside doesn't look too bad. That's just rust stains there. So, yeah, looks like I've got at least one steel fender, and the driver's side I've got to look around for. So if you have any leads on the driver's side steel fender for 55, let me know. Put it in the comments. I'm going to look around up in Carlisle let's see, I guess that show starts April 18th or the 19th. So there's a chance that I can get a steel fender there. And so, yep. I was just in the midst of rendering the video that I made. So I'll add this to it. Okay, well, more to the story. I appreciate you guys watching. Please like and subscribe.